Hey, what's going on guys? I'm Mr. Sandman. If you haven't already seen the previous video in the series explaining what Halo Wars could have been, check it out in the video description below. This video I'll be explaining how Halo Wars could have improved when it was first released, along with the DLCs that released afterwards. Then in the next video, I'll explain what I want to see in the sequel. I know I will most likely miss a few things, so if you think I neglected to mention something, then leave it in the comments, and I'll add it to the description. The first thing I want to talk about are the scout units, and more specifically their AI. Most likely you will have come across the issue where you try and ram a ghost or something, and your warthog or chopper will go through it, and you miss a chance to get the kill. It's just ridiculous. Also, it can become quite frustrating when you try and ram a ghost directly on top of crates, as you will just select the crates, and you will be unable to ram the ghost. Another thing that really annoys me about the scouts is the way they'll get stuck on parts of the map. An example of this is when I'm sending my scout to the other side of the map on 14 and you go past the rebels. For some reason it will just get stuck on the tower or the rebels themselves and give them enough time to get an RPG off. More often than not, it costs the life of my ghost. They'll also get stuck on corners of ramps and other places. It's not just restricted to the scouts however. Tanks are big culprits with their AI. Especially when they're in a big group together, they'll do 360s and go backwards. Speaking of doing 360s, this is a huge problem with the Scarab's AI, where it'll do unnecessary turns to move around. Overall, the AI of the Scarab is really bad. This next thing is about Grizzlies. Now if you're a high level player, you will most likely know to never upgrade to Grizzly tanks. This is for a couple reasons. Firstly, you cannot canny glitch. We won't go into that. And secondly, your canny damage is reduced. This cripples your ability to decimate opposing armies. At the launch of the game, Grizzlies were an appealing upgrade. Now they are just pointless for all but infantry such as ODST and hunters. Plain and simple, PT will decimate Grizzlies. Another thing that really confuses me is how you cannot get your healers to automatically heal units in reactors. This is just a little thing that should have been fixed but never was. A big thing that is a flaw with Halo Wars is that the most effective strategies are all mostly based around using one unit until the game is over. Whether that be warhogs, banshees or tanks, whatever. I just think that the incentive to build mixed armies during high level gameplay just isn't there. If it is used, it usually just gets steamrolled by the opposing team. For instance, getting an army of tanks usually beats gremlins and tanks because you're able to build an army of tanks much quicker and it's just easier to control overall. Another thing that I think they should have added would be the ability to use a worded flare, where the narrator would say a phrase such as "reactor required" to signify that you want to get in the reactor. To combat this system being spammed and abused by anyone on the team, a cooldown timer should be put in place, say for a minute. This would hopefully get rid of the constant flaring at randos as they call you a noob for wanting to get into the reactor. Another gripe I have with the game is that you cannot see who you're about to play with, and nor can you see which map you will play on. With that being said, I would have hoped that you could see the players' names and ranks. Not only that, but there should have been the ability to vote from a selection of maps to play on, kind of like the other Halo games. I just hope this happens in the sequel. The next thing I want to mention is something that I feel very strongly about, that being the lack of 3v3 maps. I mean, what is up with that? The most played game type has the least amount of effort put into it. It really annoys me. I mean, only 2 of the 3 maps are decent, and the 4th DLC map, I only get to play like 1 out of 100 games. Speaking more about the DLC, I feel like they were kind of lackluster. As someone who enjoys playing 3v3 the most, I felt like the map Glacial was kind of disappointing. Firstly, it's the same snow theme as Frozen Valley. I mean, they couldn't have gone for a different environment like a volcanic biome. Not only that, it's also very similar to the map layout of Docks. Perhaps this is just lazy map design and they had to get the DLC out quick, but I'm not too sure. Whatever the case, the issue still remained. As for Exile, I think we all know why we don't like playing on Exile. Another issue comes with the fact that they introduced new game modes with the DLCs. Nobody, to my knowledge, ever played them. I think that if they wanted them to be played, then they should have been included with the game from the start. Perhaps the time they used to make the game modes could have been put into including more 3v3 maps. Just maybe. Another issue I have with the 3v3 maps is that there weren't enough crates on the 3v3 maps compared to how many you get on the 2v2 maps. Take a map like Terminal Moraine for instance. It just seems like they chucked a bunch of crates in the middle and said done. The next problem I have with Halo Wars is the way hunters will just stop shooting when they're being shot by something, say tanks for example. This means that they have a distinct disadvantage to the tank that is shooting at it. as it doesn't suddenly reduce its fire rate because it's being shot at. This becomes even more apparent when you upgrade to beam. Hunters will all just start their shooting animation, thus reducing its DPS. This means that not having beam is better in some cases, as it can't be interrupted as often. A further issue in Halo Wars is the AI of the suicide grunts. More often than not, they will do something that you don't want them to do. For instance, they will just shoot and stand still, or go through buildings, or even split up. It can become quite frustrating in a tense game. Speaking again about the rebels on the 3v3 maps, I think that the 3-star marines and snipers from the 2v2 maps should have been put on the 3v3 maps, and vice versa. It would have helped with getting veterancy on 3v3 maps, and it just makes sense to have tougher marines on 3v3. The next issue I have with the game is the randomness of what the base turrets can and cannot shoot at. It can be quite annoying and apparent when you are trying to defend against a covey with a plasma turret.
Oh, that irritates me. Seriously, dude. Fucking time.
An additional concern that I have with Halo Wars are the Cyclops. I find them to be one of the most useless and least used units in the game. Not only are they inferior to engineers in almost every way, but their ability to kill buildings is useless. They cannot fly and are slow, and are slower at healing. I think they could have at least given them a better heal rate compared to engineers, considering they cannot traverse terrain like engineers. A further gripe is to do with the Covenant leaders of the game. Firstly, the Chieftain. His Vortex ability takes far too long to take effect. The same thing can be said of the Prophet's Beam ability. We then had the AI of the Chieftain. It is very broken, and sometimes he'll do constant half swing, and never hit his target, so you have to move him and then reselect your target. This allows him to lose valuable HP. Another AI issue is the fact that the Chieftain will attack, say, an Arbiter, even though I never told him to, and in fact I told him to move away from the Arbiter. This precise scenario then leads to him getting suied, finally making me very pissed off. The same sort of thing can happen with the other two leaders. For instance, here you can see my RB getting wrecked by Flood, and he won't move away from them, even when I tell him. As for the Prophet, if he is shot just before he gets his fuel rod upgrade, his shield won't go all the way up. I don't understand why this is in the game. Yet another thing that I think was broken in Halo Wars was the fact that you could get Gauss and ODST at just Tech 3, making it especially easy to get Gauss. Let's look at the ODST for starters. Firstly, you see every noob building ODST and nothing else, and never do anything useful with them. I don't know how the game promotes the use of ODST so much, but it's a disease. Not only that, but it only takes Tech 3, when the rest of the other special units take Tech 4. Like, what gives? They couldn't be bothered to include another intermediate upgrade, so they just made it Tech 3. Both of these things should require Tech 4 to research. For ODST specifically, I cannot tell you the amount of teammates who I have to watch as they stare at their base, never moving mind you, and upgrade to ODST. I mean, how did they complete the campaign by doing that? I'm going to make a video related to that soon, so stay tuned. Then we have Gauss Hogs. I think getting Gauss in under 4 minutes 30 speaks for itself. It just simply should have been a Tech 4 upgrade. Perhaps that's just me though. A further thing I think they should have done differently would have been to switch the roles between the flamies that you make and the sniper rebels, allowing you to make sniper squads. Why do I say that? Well, it's because I think jackals way outclass the flamies. That way the human snipers could compete with the jackals. Another issue I have with the 3v3 playlist is the way the teams are divided up. Say for instance there are 4 generals in the game. Sometimes there will then be 3 generals on one team and you on the other, with like 2 captains, being like, what the fuck, Vondi? The next 2 are just annoying glitches that are considered scummy moves throughout the community, that being the canny glitch and the stasis glitch. I personally find the stasis glitch to be more annoying, as the canny glitch doesn't happen all that often in games, but the stasis glitch is done by everyone, and it's just not right. Finally, moving on to the covey bases. I feel like the temple should have allowed for a reserves upgrade equivalent, and maybe an infantry speed upgrade too, little things like that. Also, when recalling leaders quickly, it can be difficult when you have units in the teleporter, and the teleporter recall can be sticky. Another issue I find with the covey bases is the way shields work. I guess I realized that having to aim at the main base to deny a shield going up is a conscious design decision. However, I think it's a bad one. I believe that if you have shots on any of the pads, it should deny it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you have a shield generator on a base, and someone only attacks a pad, or sometimes a generator, the shield will go up regardless. I think it's very BS. Now I know this may seem very negative, but I just wanted to make a video explaining what was wrong and what needs to be fixed for the next game. Don't get me wrong, I love this game, but of course it's not without its flaws. In my next video, I'll talk about the features I want to see in Halo Wars 2 for both the campaign and the multiplayer, so be sure to look out for that. Now I'm going to show you guys a little sneak peek to my Halo Wars 2 video on what I want to see in the campaign. First off, I want to see a more grittier campaign, a more desperate struggle. In Halo Wars, it was too childish and relaxed. Another thing they could add to the campaign would be to have some missions where glassing is taking place, much like you see in Halo Reach. If done correctly, it could be as powerful as a moment in COD 4 when you die to an atomic bomb. If I had to show a comparison of what I'm trying to get at, it would be in this live action advert for Halo 3. This desperate struggle may be difficult to pull off in an RTS, but I'm sure it could be done. A lot of time goes into making these videos, so if you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like and subscribing so that I can make more of these. Also, check out my Twitter, Facebook and Twitch down below in the description. Also guys, I have a second channel that I just made, so if you're interested, it'll be in the link down below in the description. What I have in mind for that channel is kind of longer unedited videos that I don't think fit into this channel. So yeah. Cheers.